Hello, everybody. This is Pete from Pa Labs, and today is day 17. Um, this has been a long coming on today's efforts. Um, I have it on full screen, not a subset of the screen, because you got to see it to do it justice. So we're going to go ahead without further ado and bring this thing up. This is obviously the designer. I've got the cities in. We have London, and I forget who this one is, and we have cities all over the map. That was the biggie of today. Let me. Uh, Whoops. Crap. What is that? Oh, that was my ta-da that I got. So, what we have is I've got German cities. We've got a lot of French cities, Belgium, the Netherlands. We've got cities. England's got a couple cities. We got a lot of factories and farms, and we have shipyards. Not that they'll play really a role in this game, but it's accurate to have them. I've got a lot of planes already in cities, and I've got a few um, airstrips laying around that are all loaded up as well. I only have a couple units here on the German side, and that's a couple tank divisions, the first and second armored division, panzer divisions getting ready to attack. I I put those in there just to show the size differential of stacking. There's a overall it's a 20% reduction, 10 all the way around, and I left the right upper left corner the same, so you can kind of get a good view that there are definitely two units there. So they will mask what they're sitting upon. So anyhow, this is the cities, factories, farms hooked up to cities. We have a lot of cities with expansion capabilities. We have populations put in. I got all of this working very nicely. Most of my day has been spent handling little tweakity type things of, oh, I don't like how that popped up. I want to change how that happens. I want to change how this. Oh, I hit delete on a unit when or the the air units inside a city. I hit delete without having any, and it crashed. I didn't have a check in for that. Little things like that. So it's been started and stopped about 800 times today with little just nitpicky type things. I finally did get to testing out the map events, and this is only partially tested. It's not fully functional. I went ahead and put in the German victory conditions, capture city of Paris, and it's a city capture event by Germany, and the city to capture is Paris. So that doesn't require any action hexes. And we're playing a victory. We have a victory message, and we have a victory wave file, which is I found a really nice glorified Tada kind of wave that's instrumental and kind of military on the web. So I went ahead and downloaded it and hooked it up. Had to bring it over to Odyssey and convert it from an MP3 to a wave and get rid of the long tail and mess it up a little bit. But it came out pretty nice. So you can see how you build the map events. We'll go ahead and cancel this back out. But it works just like everything else thinks in this. I did get the export written, and I'll go ahead and pop the code up for this for those who are interested. So in the Pure Basic Desktop, the project I did before this one, I have a function, a checkbox on there when you're building your database class of export. And so you can take and flag everything in your system to be exportable. And as you build the object, so our starting object for the game is this war game object, okay? If we come up here to the top of him, he's the granddaddy, he's the parent of the entire game that you're actually building. And he has two collections. He has a collection of maps, and then he has a collection of players. Okay, so there's two players to the game, and this is the players you'll have here. We'll have an allies and an access type player, and then through the use of the events, then we'll assign players to certain map players. All right, so it's feasible that in a campaign game, the map is, well, hold on, the map is the main workhorse of the entire game. Everything lives in map. So if we come up here to game map in the database layer, we can zoom on up to the top. So he's got all the collections, okay? He's got the units that are in that map. He's got the players that are in that map. He's got the cities that are in that map, facilities, the map hex. He has a light version of map hex, which is enough of the map hex collection from the map maker. It's everything except the image, really. So it's just a bunch of strings and integers that he uses, that the game player is going to use to identify if you've hit a blocked cell or you've hit terrain you can't cross, and the cost of moving across this type of terrain and that kind of thing. And then he has the map events collection. So many of these collections have collections of their own, and many of those have collections of their own, with all the cross references between players and nations and game eras and elements that are allowed in game eras and all of that kind of stuff. And then the override layers of the nation's override of an element in a particular era. So all of that is all nested inside this. So as this is being built from within the pure basic desktop, I throw the little check mark that says, okay, I want this to be able to be exported. And so at the very parent end of that is here. And what we'll do is I'll just scroll down. It's not real far to go to. We have the export of the war game. Now, this takes a file, and he takes a bunch of custom values that we have, lists and various things that aren't going to be accessible from the game player. All the things that aren't accessible from the game player are here. And then what we do is we start the big export migration is here, which is all the different fields, all the classes that are in here, all of their classes and their classes and their classes and their classes. All of that kind of crap goes all through there. And then we have at the end of this, we have, okay, now we're going to export the game era object, which would include all of his sub classes. And then we're going to have, let's see, the base unit list. This is a bad description for what that is. That's the base unit list, which is all the true data that is about all the units in the entire system. Okay, what is their maximum number of elements they can have? What is their strength? What are their point values? All of that kind of stuff is all in this. And then we have facilities. So when you're in the game and you want to create a new facility, I can access the facility list and then bring all the proper values over for all facilities. That's all standardized. Like all farms produce the same amount of money. All farms cost a certain amount of money. They all have the same rebuild costs. They all have, all of that same kind of stuff is all contained in the facility list. And so on and so forth through all of the data. And then we get to the combat matrix. Now, I haven't really talked about the combat matrix. In the war game, uh, I have personally, truly detested on a grand scale that one dice throw determines, 7 divisions that are going to combat, and it's 2 to 1 odds. And I argue the whole odds thing, and I argue the entire generic value of any unit and coming up with a unified generic value. So I don't do any of that crap. So in this game, we every element of attacking is looked up against every element of defending. So if you have an infantry unit, it could be the strongest infantry unit on the planet Earth. They're not going to touch a high level bomber. A high level bomber is basically going to slaughter an infantry unit. There's just all they can do is hide. Their rifles don't reach that high. That's all there is to it. They're not going to touch the damn planes. Um, Same with artillery. I mean, artillery can't hit straight up into the air. You need anti-aircraft to go after those big boys up there. Um, so every element is rated against every other element, and there's a percentage probability that I've attached to all of these different combinations. Infantry versus armor. Well, infantry does kill armor. They have sticky bombs. They blow off treads. They open hatches and throw in grenades. They get pretty much slaughtered along the way, but they can kill several tanks. So an infantry unit with 60 infantry, a full-size infantry division or whatever you have it here, unit in this game, may take 30 hits from an armored division, but they'll kill 2 or 3 of those 16 tanks in the process. Okay, so that's how I look at it as a probabilities, and nothing is a individual roll. Each of those 60 infantry men in that division get a chance to hit the armor. Each of those 60 individual infantry get a chance to hit the infantry that is against them. And likewise, all of the infantry, all of the armor fire back at these guys. So a combat resolution can easily be 2 to 300 dice rolls. Okay, so no one roll is pivotal, and oh my God, that I've always hated back in the old Avalon Hill days. You always had, if you rolled a 1 and you had 2 to 1 superiority over your enemy, the enemy has a 1%, 1 in 6% chance to kill the attackers in almost all of their games, which I've argued that's not real life. Uh, yes, the over the 2 to 1, one has a very good chance of defending if they got a good defensive position, and yes, they will extract a certain amount of damage against that, which could be pretty heavily, but they're probably going to lose or get heavily hit themselves. In this game, nobody comes out unscathed. All right. So that's how this whole thing works. And it works by many, many, many dice rolls, no individual anything. So I kind of consider this to be more accurate. Infantry sitting on the shore isn't going to hurt a battleship out in the harbor. Matter of fact, the battleship out in the harbor has a range of probably 2 hexes, and the infantry better get the hell out of their way, otherwise they're in trouble. Now, armored units, sure. If they're within range of armor on the shore, then they better look out. They better fire back and whatnot. But, it's that sort of thing. Every element against every element. So that's what this combat matrix is. And it's, as with everything else in the game, uh, everything is editable. If you don't like my percentages or you think it's coming out a bit squirrely, you can go in and tweak it to your heart's content. Okay, I look at it from a standpoint of doing tests that require uh, 200 attacks of infantry against infantry. How does that work out? What is the average that I'm seeing of the attacker being hurt by the defenders being hurt by the attackers? Same against infantry, infantry to armor, infantry against armor, infantry against artillery. Well, artillery usually ends up with the bad end of that. Artillery needs to be behind the line, not into the actual fray of combat with infantry. So anyhow, that's how I've come up with these percentages. They look a little strange, but when you get to play in the game, it pretty much makes sense. So that's the export of the game. Everything is all included there. In the game file itself, in the game map, we have all of the individual grid images, the map images, the label images, all of that sort of stuff. That will also, right now, it's not including, I can see, the cities units and the other ones that'll have to get added to this. But that all comes from this one export, and then I zip it all up at the very end of this. I found that function I was looking for the other day, and in here, and it was. Let's go jump and get to it. It's under includes, and it was called Designer Export. So Designer Export handles all of the folder creation at the top. I've got its own procedure of check paths to make sure all the paths of the game are expected and known. And then he comes in and he utilizes all of those. He increments the version and all of that kind of stuff, and he creates the export, and then at the very end down here he actually zips it all up into a pack file, and so it ends up changing from a WG extension to WGX, which is a zip of the WG. And so that's the actual end result of the whole thing, is just a single file. And so you'll actually have a path of the name of the war game as a folder path of the folder there, and then inside that folder you'll have each of the different zip files of the different versions of the game. So that's how that's all going to break out when it all gets done. So you'll see it when I get to the next videos or two. So all of that's written. I think the overall look and feel of the game is really coming together. I think this is about what I anticipated and was hoping for. So we can scroll around and you can see I've got two cities. We got a bunch of planes out there. I got to put units still in. I haven't done units. I still got some cleanup in map events to do. And but I mean, this is really coming along pretty nicely, I think. I'll be able to get to all of that tomorrow without any trouble at all. And even in this game, Germany's got several ports, and when they take the Netherlands, they'll get their port, and when they take Belgium, they'll get their port. So they'll end up with 3 or 4 ports. They could actually start producing submarines if they wanted. England could be over there and start producing pocket battleships and stuff, and destroyers and whatnot. So the game could expand beyond what the normal focus might have been at 1940, France of 1940. But Germany's true military goal is Paris. So once they conquer the city of Paris, the game basically is over. So France needs to defend Paris with everything they've got. So anyhow, that's where things are at. I really don't have the marginal line in here. It really wasn't as big a factor as it was anticipated in being, but it was outdated, and I know there were construction issues because when it was built, the concrete froze instead of hardened. So Germany blew holes through it with a bunch of what did they call them back in the day? Not special. They were special forces, but the frogmen came over and planted charges all over it so they could disable it and blow through. So anyhow, that's where the game is at right now. This is almost our working game version, which I will move to create the export from. I just got to put in a bunch of units, and then I'm not going to put in as much as I did on the Windows game. I'm going to put less in, and then that would make the sides actually produce their own units and come forward with their own units. Although Germany will heavily outnumber the Allies as they did in real time. So France will have their units all spread across the entire border from Switzerland all the way to the English Channel, not concentrated in the defense of Paris, but because that's how the whole scenario basically failed. Was the Germans came through the Ardennes forest with their best panzer divisions, and then there was nobody left to throw in front of Paris in front of them. So anyhow, enough of history, enough of playing around. So I think the map's really coming out pretty good. It is, in my vision, what I wanted it to be. You got cities, you got factories and farms, and you got all kinds of stuff in here. So we'll be having units all over the place next time you get to see it. And then hopefully I'll be able to go through an export and an import, and maybe we'll have a mock-up. Let's see, today's Friday. Hopefully by Sunday I'll have a mock-up of the actual game player and be able to show something on the game player. But most likely tomorrow we'll just get the server up and the game player and test communications and start the communication layer between all of this running. Get the import and export finalized, finish off the map events. But it's coming along pretty good, I think. And as always, I want to thank all of you for watching. And